Great Lakes are one of the biggest sources of income for our economy here in Michigan, and Lake Michigan in particular is one of the largest bodies of fresh water in the world. And if Asian carp were to invade the Great Lakes, that multi-billion dollar industry could potentially be ruined. So the first question we should address is, what are Asian carp? How did they get here, and why did they pose such a threat to the Great Lakes? Asian carp were originally imported to the southern United States in the 70s to help aquaculture and wastewater treatment facilities keep retention ponds clean. Flooding throughout the 90s allowed these fish to escape them into the Mississippi and migrate into Missouri and Illinois rivers, which they continue to do today. Here's some more on Asian carp.
Asian carp, and they've been ruining lakes and streams everywhere they go. Holy cow! Whoa! Man! We got a boat full of fish. There's a big one. Whoa! When these fish were small, people thought this was funny, but now that they're 10 and 20 pounds, they can hit you and really do some serious harm. And just a few seconds later, I find out the hard way. Whoa! Whoa! Oh! Ouch! The local fishing economies could take the biggest hit of all. Several Asian carp species were introduced to U.S. catfish farms in the 70s to eat algae in local ponds. They've since escaped into the Mississippi River system and become so prolific that they threaten to gulp down the food native fish need to survive. As the invaders continue their march north, the commercial fishing industry on Lake Michigan could be the next big target.
What threat do Asian carp propose to the Great Lakes and the ecosystem?
Asian carp, being a non-native species, often will not have any local predators and will not be susceptible to some of the diseases that may be here. And therefore they have kind of an unfair advantage if they got into a new ecosystem like the Great Lakes. Mm-hmm. And because they are very aggressive fish, they're voracious eaters, they will, without a predator limiting them, will tend to really distort the ecosystem, really take out a lot of some of the food that are normally the food for other fish in an ecosystem. And as a result, the whole balance of different species gets disrupted and maybe dangerously so.
Okay.
And in fact, you can go not too much south of Lake Michigan and see the fish themselves.
Yeah.
Asian carp, there are actually, I think, 3 or 4 different species, mm-hmm. all of which are spreading and moving in close to the Great Lakes. One of those species is the one that, when disturbed, jump, mm-hmm. and you see a lot of film footage of those fish jumping in. There are a couple of other species of Asian carp that are also a part of this threat, mm-hmm. which don't jump as much, but are pretty similar in their behavior, mm-hmm. and their feeding behavior and the way they disrupt.
One way to solve the Asian carp problem is through electric barriers. The federal government can implement laws to build electric barriers around the areas that Asian carp are closing in on. This diagram shows the plan for possible input of electric barriers. The fish, specifically Asian carp, would be electrified by the barrier, not allowing them to pass through. In order to better understand how electric barriers work, we need to clarify what they are. They are essentially a series of 3 electrified barriers. They each have their own set of underwater electrodes, which will generate an electric field from the bottom of the canal to the top of the water. And how do electric barriers work? The barriers create a direct current electric field traveling through the water. When the fish try to pass through the barrier, they receive a shock of electricity to cause the fish repulsion, and it detours the fish from swimming in that direction again. The electric barriers are somewhat similar to the electric dog fences, except fish obviously do not wear collars. Workers are able to change the settings that combine pulse duration, frequency, and voltage in order to provide a flexibility in operation adjustments. The picture repeats itself 3 times as the 3 sets of barriers. As you can see, some of the fish might get through the first set, but will not make it through all 3. How will electric barriers keep Asian carp out of the Great Lakes? The electric barriers are the best current tool to stop the movement of Asian carp from the Illinois River to the Great Lakes. They have been installed in the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal. Without these barriers in place, the Asian carp would have a straight shot at the Great Lakes, destroying our ecosystem. After securing barriers in the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal, the close monitoring has shown that there is no Asian carp population above the electric barrier. The Asian Carp Regional Coordinating Committee has a response team that does an analysis of the water samples to test for Asian carp DNA. They have worked in different ways to change the system in case of emergency, like electrofishing and constructing a 13-mile barrier to prevent fish from passing during flooding.
Around 1900, civil engineers connected the Great Lakes to the Mississippi River Basin to let shippers access both waterways. But within the past 30 years, biologists and the Army Corps of Engineers have been trying to keep aquatic species from moving out of native habitats in the Great Lakes and into the Mississippi River Basin, and vice versa. Currently, professional and amateur fishermen in the Great Lakes, along with the area's tourist industry, are desperately seeking ways to prevent Asian carp from getting from the Mississippi into Lake Michigan. One method being suggested are a series of locks with special provisions for keeping fish and other aquatic species from getting through. Ships approaching these so-called Great Lakes and Mississippi River interbasin locks first pass over a series of passive electrodes that send enough current into the water to stun and repel fish and other aquatic animals. Then, once the vessel is in the locks and the gates are closed at both ends, pumps suck out untreated water from the entry end while other pumps send treated water into the other end. This keeps the vessel afloat while the water is exchanged. Treated water consists of river and lake water that has been sent through screens small enough to remove any fish and animals. Then it is filtered through sand to remove eggs, seeds, and other small pieces of organic matter. Finally, the water is zapped with UV light to kill the vast majority of any remaining microorganisms. Besides setting a physical barrier and completely blocking off the water stream, this is the only 100% effective way that we could stop the spread of Asian carp. The Army Corps of Engineers predicts that it could take almost 25 years and $15 billion to create. On top of stopping the spread of Asian carp, the series of locks would create jobs for those who need them. It is also a one-and-done installation, meaning once it is there for good. See how Asian carp could affect Lake Michigan natives. How would Asian carp in Lake Michigan affect you?
Well, it would be dangerous when it comes to the stuff that we do, all the water sports, and to know that something could jump right out of the water and hit you and maybe knock you out and even kill you. So it would take the fun out of all the things that we love to do on Lake Michigan.
I won't be able to skimboard anymore, and the boating industry will go way down, and I love being on the water, so that will be sad.
What do you think is a possible solution to stop the spread of Asian carp?
Make a dam in the Mississippi River.
Well, we could do The Simpsons and put a dome over it. Or we can just put a huge net maybe that would capture all of the Asian carp in one big thing.